This AL-BINO sounding off. Middle of the week, on my way down to Las Cruces, so drop off a load of meter boxes, manhole covers. Just watching the news, I gotta tell you, I had a discussion with a friend of mine last night. And I told her flat out, I said, you women had better pray that Trump wins. That Trump actually gets the seat in the White House and that the Republicans win both houses. Because if you do not, if you guys continue to vote your feelings based upon morality, or as opposed to morality and reality, there will be a civil conflict. And one of the outgrowths of that civil conflict will be that there will no longer be civil rights for women. That women's rights will cease to exist. And it won't be in a way that you're going to like. She's like, well, why? I said, well, let's look at it, okay? Women got the right to vote in 1920. Since 1920, we have had an explosive expansion of the welfare state, of debt spending, and women vote to kill their own babies, to delete their own children, to exterminate progeny. I said, given all three of those things, now that I've laid that out for you, and this is the decision, or this is the way that most women want to vote. I asked her this, I said, given all this, do you think, now that I've laid that out for you, that if this is the way that women want to vote, if this is the way that women collectively want to push the country, that they should have the right to vote and make civic decisions? And she said, well, now that you put it that way, no, we shouldn't. I'll tell y'all women something, especially you boomer women. Because I have a boomer mother. You can't tell anything before she starts pitching the whole, well, I have a voice and I have feelings too, fit. So I'm just going to lay it out straight for y'all. Y'all better knock off this feminism bullshit. And y'all better vote for Trump. And y'all better make sure Trump gets in office. Because if we have a civil conflict, all this first world luxury that you guys enjoy and women's civil rights is a first world luxury. Okay? That comes after first world. God damn it. My eyeballs, allergies are killing me. All that comes after first world standards are established in a country. Okay? Until then, you don't. Okay? So that's a first world luxury. So, if you want to continue to have your women's rights, you better make sure Trump wins. Any type of women's rights. Okay? And I will tell you this. The pendulum is swinging to the right. Maybe if Kamala wins, obviously, in the political sphere, it hasn't swung far enough. But socially, it is swinging to the right. Way to the right. Okay? And even if if Trump wins, I have a feeling within 10 years, 10 to 15 years, women's rights will be repealed. And they need to be. They absolutely... I have reached my breaking point with this. Since women have abused the rights that we all agree that they were granted, it's like it's like an adult abusing his privileges and becoming a thief or becoming a murderer or becoming a rapist. You know, just because the adult has the ability to go get things, the right to go get things, or the right to procreate, if they go about it the wrong way, then their rights as a person are taken away from them because they abuse their rights. Likewise, women, you have abused your rights going on 106 years. You have, because ever since you have had suffrage, and you can go look at the statistics and the numbers, we have been on the trajectory of social dishevelment, destruction. This has to stop. And I am now of the belief that in order to arrest this, we're going to have to remove women's suffrage, period. Because y'all have proven that you are hell-bent on destroying society. Okay? And that you're incapable of participating in the civic square. That is a man's purview and a man's purview only. And you guys need to go home and do women things. That's it. You call me a chauvinist. You can call me whatever you want to call me. But the data supports what I'm saying. Most of the people, and you would find this odd, because, you know, if somebody wanted to be a playboy, or if man wanted to just go play around sexually with no consequences, you would think that men would support this, but most of the people who are advocating to end baby deletion in the womb are men. It's the women who are fighting to delete their own children. And the men are trying to tell them, no, that's not right. No, that's immoral. And the more that we try to correct them on that, the harder they fight. It's like a 3-year-old in the cereal aisle when you tell him, no, you can't get the Fruity Pebbles, and then they throw themselves on the floor and throw a fit. And then you got to grab them by their arm and literally drag them like a sack of flour out of the store, right? Now you know what? Since you threw that fit, now we're not getting any cereal at all. You're done, right? Guess what? Women, now that y'all are throwing your fit, it's time for us men to grab you by the arm. Now that you've thrown yourself on the floor, you started throwing a temper tantrum in the cereal aisle like a 3-year-old, drag you out of the storm and take you home. Because you're not getting any cereal at home. How about that? Steinem's in hell, burning where she needs to be. Madeline O'Hare is dead. She's in hell where she needs to be. I'm happy those women are burning in hell. Happy. Happy, okay? That's where they belong. Margaret Sanger's burning in hell, and I'm happy about it. Happy. If they have gasoline cans in heaven, I will stand at the rim of heaven and look down in hell and find Margaret Sanger and pour gasoline on her, if I'm allowed to. That's what I want to do. All of you women who have killed your babies, you're going to hell. Period. You're going to hell. And I want to pour gasoline on you from heaven into hell and watch you burn. Because you snuffed out innocent babies, innocent lives. This is what you voted for. You view it as a civil right. It's evil. And you don't deserve the right to vote. What you deserve the right to do is go home, sit down, and do what your fucking father, your husband, your brother, your uncles tell you to do, and keep your goddamn mouth shut. Period. You have thrown away your right to have a voice. Forever. You have no voice. If this is the way it's going to be, you have no voice. None. Because all you are is a bunch of children in adult bodies. You're just a bunch of children in adult bodies, and you know what? We don't let children vote. We don't let children drive cars. We don't let children smoke. We don't let children play with matches or drink alcohol. We tell children what to do. We discipline children when they misbehave. Why? Because children are incapable of making decisions and processing things properly on their own. And right now, women, you are just a bunch of children. You can't even play house anymore. You're so stupid and immature. Let me tell you something else about American men. You guys are fucking worthless. Absolutely worthless. I was watching an On the Street interview where a guy was asking Trump or Kamala, Trump or Kamala, and this is in North Carolina, especially the men on the East Coast. Y'all are worthless. Okay, a bunch of simps. And a bunch of them dudes were like, well, Kamala. And then the guy would ask why. And I don't like Trump. Well, you guys, y'all, you don't even know a man when you see him. Let me tell you this way. Men's magazines back in the day, when I was a young man, when I was growing up, they put him on the cover of what it was to be a man. Especially millennial men and on down. Y'all are fucking worthless. Bunch of mama's boys. But this is going to go right back up to the boomer men too. Because y'all are a bunch of fucking panty-waist simps. Because you don't have the courage to put your wives in their places. This is why now, anytime you raise your voice at a woman, she's going to call a bunch of other men in blue to remove you from your house because you have no balls. And the guys that do have balls, now they get in trouble just for saying no, or just for telling a woman, hey, you better knock it off or legal action's going to happen. You better knock it off or I'm going to go down and we're going to call lawyers and we're going to make things happen to you. You can't even do that. That's pictured as abuse. That's not abuse. That's telling another individual, hey, you better stop the dumb stuff or we're going to go sit down in a room full of adults and then you're going to face judgment. The harder you women put, y'all women are stupid. You like to stand around and claim that men are abusive. And then you push men, push men, push men, push men. And the harder you push against us, the angrier we get. Here's a solution. The way to stop a war, or the way to stop a war from breaking out, is not to start the war in the first place. Maybe instead of pushing against your men and just being complete assholes and 3-year-olds, maybe if you would listen to your men, they would be willing to listen to you. But for 106 years now, you individuals have been just pulling levers. I'm going to blame the Great Depression on women, not the stock market crash. The Great Depression. Why? Franklin Delano Roosevelt stayed in office based upon feelings of his electorate. Because he made people feel good, even though for 9 years, or actually 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 30, for 7 years of his 12, the only thing that saved him was World War II. For 7 years of his 12 years in office, his policies kept this country in a depression. But just because he can get on the radio and talk to people and make people's wives feel good, then all those women went out and kept him in office. Because the dude was selling socialism all day long. He was a socialist. And all those women, now that they had a voice in the political arena, which women should never have, that forced their husbands to do the same. So, the prolonging of the Great Depression is women's fault. They voted for FDR the first time around, en masse. And then they kept him in office for 4 terms. When Senator McCarthy was trying to flush out communists from our institutions, both public and private, in the 1950s, A Communist by A communist by the name of Edwin P. Murrow made this big expose on him on national news. And there was a public outcry because McCarthy was being stern. Him and Nixon and the House Committee on Un-American Activities and all that stuff. See, McCarthy was doing the right thing, especially trying to root those out in the public sector. And he was actually following his oath, because when you take an oath as an elected official or as a bureaucrat, you are taking an oath to execute the duties of your office. But in so doing, you're taking an oath to protect the Constitution of the United States. In all federal offices, doesn't matter if you're a private in the Army, the Speaker of the House, or the President of the United States, or Supreme Court Justice, the oaths are all a little bit different, but in each one of those oaths is exactly that quote. Okay? So, Senator McCarthy and Representative Nixon were doing their job. Let's see, Edwin P. Murrow, who was a communist, cried wolf. All the women in America. Oh, that's not nice. That's not the way we want to be. So, the fact that in the 1950s and the late 1940s, when we had an opportunity to root communism out of this country and out of our institutions and to prosecute traitors to this nation in a real sense, it makes it absolutely clear that communists and traitors would not be tolerated in this country. And those laws against that are still on the books. The women who have the right to vote since the 1920s put a stop to that. So now we have socialism and communism eating away at the foundations of our nation and just going buck wild right now. Because women have the right to vote. And women have a civic voice. If they did not, then that would have been halted in the 1940s and 1950s. We would have won in Korea, and we would have won in Vietnam, and we would have won in Iraq and Afghanistan if it wasn't for women. Why? We don't like war. War's ugly. We don't like fighting. The Bible says, "Thou shalt not kill." But yet these are the same people who fought for Margaret Sanger opening birth control clinics in 1916. So even before they had suffrage, all the way up into the 1970s, they have the right to kill their children. And women, you're wrong. Because depending on the translation of the Bible that you read, and the Ten Commandments, when the Ten Commandments say, "Thou shalt not kill," the context is, "Thou shalt not murder." See, you're wrong. Because the Bible also condones capital punishment. Right? Taking of a human life for rape, for murder, for egregious violations of the social. That's in the Bible. Oh, wait, that's right. We're trying to do away with capital punishment now. And, crime's just going out of control. And we're trying to take away guns now because that's what women want. Because guns are bad. Capital punishment is mean. No, you shouldn't have the right to vote. Because having a gun in the house, guns are dangerous for children. You know, it's awful funny. My grandfather had guns in his house. And when I was little, I didn't know where they were. Did he put them in a safe? No. but he put them in a place where I couldn't find them. And we weren't allowed in certain areas of his house, such as his bedroom, because that was his bedroom. You know, we had respect for that area of his house. Okay? And when I did know where the guns were, guess what? I didn't touch them until I had his permission. So there goes that argument. You know, we didn't start having mass shootings in high school until after I graduated from high school. Shortly after. But that's, you know, that was during the Clinton years. What happened during the Clinton years? Started doing gun control, right? The Brady Bill, all that stuff. Remember that? And within 4 years of that, we started having mass shootings and stuff in high schools. Do you know that until the Brady Bill came out, when I was in high school, when it did come out, up until that Brady Bill did come out during the Clinton administration, that we didn't have high school shooters. We had dudes that would bring rifles in their gun racks in their trucks and park them in the school parking lot. Loaded rifles. Now, granted, there were, you know, living in Albuquerque, which is a large city, and it's a lot larger now than it was then, but it was still a large city back then. We had stuff like drive-bys and gang violence and stuff like that, but that was off campus. But there wasn't near as much of it then as there is now, because back then, depending on what part of town you were in, hey, you know, you might get shot. You might get shot back at. That's a gamble. But guns are bad, right, girls? So you want to take away the right for men to protect their families, because the world is just, it's the Care Bears, and we're all fucking strawberry shortcake and My Little Pony out here running around with the fucking Smurfs, right? Like a bunch of blue fucking faggots. You know, there was a woman in the Bible just like the women of today. Her name was Jezebel. Maybe one of these days I will go and I'll actually pull out the Bible and just read about Jezebel in the Old Testament. Every chapter, just for a whole podcast. Every chapter that mentions her. And her simp ass, weak ass, piece of shit, pussy whooped husband Ahab. You know, y'all like to twist the truth sometimes. Yes. Jesus did show mercy to women. Yes, a woman was the first person to see the resurrected Lord. That's fine and good. And Jesus was trying to get them, or to point out that women are equal in personhood, but they're not equal in hierarchy, because after that, the Apostle Paul mentioned several times in his letters, particularly in 1 Corinthians and in Ephesians, that in the hierarchy of things, women are under or submissive to men. Men are submissive to God. Women are submissive to men. Children are submissive to children or to women. That's the hierarchy of things, right? So that you can't pick one and then go with the other. And no, the Bible doesn't contradict itself. Women have the same right to life and to safety as men. They do. They have the right within the family structure, within the home, where Paul says that women should not be uncovered, which is the carrying forth of the Old Testament tradition. So nothing's been changed there. As long as they're covered in the home, okay, yeah, they got a voice there, and it's the man's duty to protect them and be willing to die for them. Okay, that's the trade-off. And if you think about the trade-off, then yeah, the two are actually equal. But even in a modern wedding ceremony, right? Because you can try and dilute things as much as you want to dilute them, okay? But even in our traditions, diluted traditions environment, where we've tried to water things down as much as we possibly can, there's still echoes of the past. Because in a church wedding, or a synagogue wedding, or a mosque wedding, even today, even as watered down as the traditions are today, in a religious wedding, you still have the father presenting his daughter to the groom. It's like a military ceremony where they change the colors. When an old commander leaves and a new commander comes in, and the old commander takes the colors of that unit and hands them to that new commander, right? Because that's exactly what's going on. Same deal, okay? Why is that? Because that woman is moving from the cover of her father or the senior male relative in that family. Because what if the father died? Then, an older brother or an uncle or even a younger brother, actually. Or if there's no male, maybe a male friend of the family or something is going to turn her over and hand those colors over to the new commander or the new man, right? That's exactly what's going on. And in the military, when those colors are handed over, the relinquishing commander, in essence, literally tells the new commander, these are the unit colors, and I'm now relinquishing the role of their protection and their honor to you. It's now your duty to protect these colors and to protect the honor of this unit. You're now responsible for it. Okay? So, then, the new commander turns and hands those colors over to the unit, either unit first sergeant, if it's a company level or less unit, or if it's a battalion level or greater unit, to the command sergeant major, the enlisted advisor. Maybe one of these days I'll go into military structure and how the officer corps represents the masculine and the non-commissioned officer corps represents the feminine. But one cannot operate without the other. They can't. Okay? The officer corps is the accountable side. They're the command side. The enlisted corps, or the non-commissioned officer corps, is the implementation side, or the execution side. And together, they make the unit operate. But one cannot exist without the other. I have to explain that. See, the enlisted man has responsibilities, and he has within the unit the authority to take initiative, to take action within his unit. But one of the things that they used to tell me as a non-commissioned officer all the time is, "Hey, Sarge, stay in your lane. Stay in your lane." In other words, I was delegated from my command structure a certain level of responsibility and authority, but that's all that I had. And if I wanted to go above that or beyond that, then I had to go to my command structure to get that approved. Unless it was what they would call, a field decision. But in those field decisions, it was hoped that I was trained sufficiently enough by my command structure to be able to take initiative within the boundaries of my responsibility to do what needed to be done. But at the end of the day, I was still accountable to my command structure, meaning the non-commissioned officers that outranked me, but primarily to the officers in my unit, the officers in my chain of command. Because while I was given authority within my level of responsibility as a non-commissioned officer, and I am to work in concert with my command team to accomplish our mission goals, those goals and those missions weren't set by me. I was given the authority to do whatever I needed to do to make sure that that mission happened, but that wasn't set by me. That wasn't set by any of the non-commissioned officers, regardless of rank. That was set by the officers. Now, yes, the non-commissioned officers could implement the directives of the officer corps, and the senior non-commissioned officers were advisors to the officers, the commanders, and they would give the officers and the commanders the information that they needed for them to make the best decisions. There wasn't a vote. And if that structure within the unit ever broke down, then the effectiveness of that unit would begin to would begin to deteriorate. The roles of each were separate but equal, but one was submissive to the other. That's the best way I can explain it. And at the end of the day, at the end of the command and staff meeting, at the end of the briefing, the non-commissioned officers didn't get the vote. The decisions were made by the officers. So, because the officers had the ability to take in all the information from all of the subordinates, plus they had the visibility and the responsibility to look outside as well and make a decision based upon all of that. Now, of course, not all of them did it right, but that's how that works. So guess what, women? You're non-commissioned officers. You don't get a vote. Not anymore. This system does not work. And the British and American military system, actually, most military systems are based upon a version of that structure. The successful ones are. Okay. And if you look at it, it's actually rooted in Judeo-Christian hierarchy systems. So this is time immemorial. Okay? Because that's how things work. And we're not a democracy. We're a republic. So think of it this way, right? Actually, let's think of it this way. The smallest social government unit in American society is supposed to be the family. Right? So, women elect a husband to represent them. Who elect, this is how it's supposed to work, who elect others to represent the interests of his family, his neighborhood. You follow? So, that's part of that chain. So, y'all are looking for the decision-making process of the woman isn't denigrated because y'all are making, hopefully, the right choice when you pick when you hopefully correctly choose your representative in a husband. Okay? You and your father together are supposed to vet this representative together with the help of your father or your closest surviving most senior male relative or close family friend, male. Okay, and then and hopefully you make that selection correctly. That's how that's supposed to work. Okay. We've gotten away from this now, and maybe we should get back to it. But the tradition, this is where you get the tradition of, a boyfriend or fiance approaching a woman's father, brother, uncle, grandfather, or close male friend who's filling that role, right? And asking for her hand. So he's basically campaigning, just like a congressman campaigns, right? So that's why that stuff's all there. So no, women, you should not be allowed to vote. You have a representative in your family who's supposed to represent your interests. as long as he's not abusing you or abandoning you and your charges for your children, what's the problem? If he's kicking the crap out of you, if he's shirking his responsibilities as a man and as being an alcoholic and won't work and all that, okay, fine. Go home and go elect another representative in due time. Okay, yeah, that's fine. I get it. No one's advocating for y'all to just be doormats. No. But ever since 1920 and before, y'all have been stepping out of your lane. Okay? Feminism is from the pit of hell. And when you're out of your lane, you destroy things. It's just like a command sergeant major. I mean, yeah, he can give field command in an emergency. Okay? But command sergeant major is not the commander of the unit. He is the senior enlisted advisor to the commander or the first sergeant, depending on the unit size. Okay? He already has his role to fill. I would suggest, and I'm sorry guys, it's been a while, so I don't remember the document numbers off the top of my head, and some of that stuff's actually changed as far as how they letter the documents. But I would suggest, if y'all want a good model on this, go ahead and Google AR-670-1 is the Army version of I'm sorry, see, I can't even, 670-1 is not command, 670-1 is uniform. See what I mean? But go ahead and go ahead and Google like the Army regulation or the Marine Corps regulation or the Air Force regulation, naval regulations for, chain of command and the field manuals for leadership and all that. It lays it out very clearly. And then you go look at that and you look at the biblical model for marriage and you're like, wow, they're exactly the same. Let me tell you something about these woke fucking pastors. My grandfather was a country-ass Southern Baptist preacher in the World War II generation. The gospel he preached to me, and his interpreting, the gospel he preached to me was fire and brimstone. That was one of the men that led me to Christ, okay? Haven't always lived like a Christian, but he did lead me when I was a boy. Walked away from it for a little while, now I'm back. But he led me to that, okay? And he had very literal translations of that book. Here's another thing, too. The man had an 8th grade education. But I would stand him up as a pastor and as a preacher and as a faith leader against any modern pastor of any church in this country, with maybe possibly John Hagin, and the late Chuck Missler, who passed away now 6 years ago. Okay? But any other man, don't hold a candle to him. And it's not because he was my grandfather, or my grandfather. My grandfather. It's not because he was my grandfather. It's because of who he was as a spiritual leader. Compared to the Jezebel scent mob we have today, leading almost every church in America. When was the last time you heard your pastor mention the word hell in a sermon? When was the last time you heard a pastor mention that if you're not saved, or if you don't change your ways, or if you don't repent, or something, anything along those lines, that you were going to go to hell? See, that's the thing. Oh, well, that's not nice. Look, y'all. In order to get the good, you have to deal with the bad. You have to confront the truth of it. There is good and there is evil. There is right, there is wrong. There are places for women and places for men. There are places for children. And that's the way that it is. Okay? And until we deal with that, it's not going to be fixed. But no, women should not have civil rights outside of their family. Period. And if their husband violates the social contract, absolutely, he is responsible. And she should walk away from it and go home. And he should face the consequences of it. Okay? It's just like a bad commander in the military. If he continues to make dangerous decisions that threaten to destroy his unit or the institution in which his unit belongs, then eventually he will be relieved of command. And if it's bad enough, he'll go to jail. Right? Okay, it's the same thing. And there is a time and a place that if that's what's really going on within his command, that the members of his command, should advocate for accountability. Absolutely, got it. But as long as that commander is acting in good faith to fulfill his role as a commander, guess what? You're subordinate to that commander for the time that he is in command of your unit. Period. Marriage is not a democracy. Family is not a democracy. America is not a democracy. Do you understand? So no, women, you should not be able to vote because you have clearly demonstrated your inability to have that responsibility. That is outside of your lane. Because when you do have that responsibility, the results is destruction. Pure and simple, that's it. But you better hope, because I'm telling you right now, letting Donald Trump win is the nice way to go about this. Because the men in this society are very angry. Okay? And we are on the knife's edge of a civil conflict. This is not me advocating. What this is me warning that if the right things do not happen within our society very soon, there is going to be civil conflict. That is a foregone conclusion. How bad it gets, where the lines are going to be drawn, but there will be a civil conflict. If the Republicans lose this year, okay? That's not saying that the people on the right are going to start it. Matter of fact, I don't think they will. Initially. I think they'll petition. I think they'll exercise their First Amendment right and then be forced to exercise their Second Amendment right. But, just by the turn of events. But it's going to get ugly. So you women, you're going to lose your right. You're probably going to lose your right to vote within the next 15 years anyway. So which way do you want to do this? Through civil discourse or through civil violence? That's pretty much your choice. Because that's the way it's going. Unless something changes, unless you women repent and have a change of heart, that's the way that it's going to go. And in my opinion, given 106 years of history of women who have had a civil voice being just utterly destructive and evil with it, no, I don't think you should have it. I think it's out of your lane. I think your lane is acting under the cover of your male relatives. And let them go out and carry the family policy into the voting booth. I don't think you should have that right. That's like a non-commissioned officer, depending on captain's bars or colonel's wings, and stepping all the way outside their role. It's not their place. There is a hierarchy. Turning boys into eunuchs and slaughtering babies is not it. That's not it. Absolutely not it. Getting in front of the men in your society who are trying to protect you and the village and allowing the enemy within the gates, that's not it either. Nope. Stopping the Senator McCarthy's from extricating the traitors from the village. Stopping the police from prosecuting criminals. That's not the answer. Yes, because policemen have to not be nice. Senator McCarthy and Representative Nixon back in the 40s and 50s had to not be nice. And y'all stood in their way. And because of that, we had the beatniks, then the hippies, and exactly what Yuri Brezhnev warned us of. Because you females stepped outside of your lane and fucked up the whole unit. And now it's time to stop. So, we either do this civilly, by civil process, over a number of years, or you guys force the issue back us into a corner, and then it's done violently, but one way or another. Or here's the third option. The feminine instinct completely weakens this society from within to the point to where it's just flat taken over from the outside by people who don't care about anybody's rights, including those of women. There's the third one. So those are your three choices. So women, if I were you, if you're into female anything at all, better pray, better hope Mr. Trump wins. That's your best option. Because the men, even your husband who might be a simp right now, even he might. There's a chance even he will reach a breaking point. You have made us your adversary. You did that, not us. We don't want to be your enemy. We want to go to work. We want to make children with you. We want to love you. We want to provide for you. We want to protect you. We want to do our role. We want to do our job. But seems to me all y'all want is a fight. Well, how do you want to have that? But your time of making decisions outside of your lane there, Sergeant, woman, it's over. It's got to be over. Has to be. There is a social construct. And it doesn't matter. Don't equate this with racism, because it has nothing to do with racism. Nothing whatsoever. Because you know what? Before this modern feminism took over the world, with very few exceptions, like minuscule exceptions, 1%, 1 or 2%, single digit percentages or less in exceptions. All the cultures are, I'd say, better than 9 out of 10 of the cultures all around the world, from all different skin colors, had a patriarch. All of them. All of them. So, Polynesians, black people, Australian Aborigines, Southeast Asians, East Asians, Siberians, Native Americans, Europeans, Jewish people, Arab people, Norwegian people, West African people, all of us. We all operated, so it has nothing to do with race. This isn't racism. Don't you dare equate it to that, because it has nothing to do with that. This is how humanity as a whole is supposed to operate. So, yeah, enough's enough. That's it. So, which way do you want to do this? You want to do this peaceably? You want to do this violently? Or do you want to lose the whole thing altogether and everybody dies? three options on the table right now, and those are three very real options. But the time for women's suffrage, it's done. It has to be done. I will say this. There are more men going to heaven than there are women going to heaven. There are more women going to hell than there are men going to hell in the afterlife. Most women alive today, not all, but most, by what I can see, from the boomer women on down, most of y'all, just by my observation, by what's going on, what the world is showing me, most of you are evil, demon-possessed Jezebels. Especially in the Western world. Maybe less so in sub-Saharan Africa, or in the jungles of the Amazon, where the modern new think hasn't corrupted those societies yet. But yeah, most women in the developed world, even in the developing world, so that would include Mexico, India, most of the South America. Yeah, most of you guys are just demon-possessed Jezebels. That's it. That's what I see. That's how it is. That's what you're showing us. Demon-possessed Jezebel.